Welcome to another FPV guy video. I'm Bo Lorentzen, the FPV guy, and today I'm going to be introducing you to a brand new product from Valkera. This is still a pre-production sample. As you can tell, the box is white. It has not been printed yet. So we're going to take a look at what's inside. And this is a 320 size multi-rotor. That means the distance between the motors is 320 millimeters. Let me just turn this around. All right, I think you guys can see now. Going straight for the main attraction, on top here we find a warning label, please read the manual before you start flying. Well, that's really good advice. I highly recommend reading the manuals. Pulling the main attraction out, here is the new Valkera copter. And the number one thing we'll notice is it has these arms that is attached to round devices on the side that allows this to slide back and forth. On the bottom is where the battery goes. In the back we have some light panel and we have a camera in the front. That's the main attraction. Let's empty the box and get back to this one. In the box, here we go. Here we find a 4S 2600 milliwatt battery. That is a lot of voltage and it's gonna help us get a quite aggressive flight profile. Over here we find a radio trainer cable. We find a USB to micro USB cable and another USB cable. Everything is run by USB cables these days. We can't live without this. Here is the antenna. We'll take that out. Over here, there you go. Over here we find the Devo 10 radio, which is a step up from the Devo 7 radio that we were seeing shipping with the Runner 250. However, it's worth noticing that this kit can be bought with either the Devo 7 or the Devo 10 radio. We're going to take a look at that too in just a minute. Let's see. And continuing right over here, we find a toolkit. One of the nice things with Valkera is they always include all the tools required to assemble and maintain your aircraft. So this is really nice. It is included also. Now, here is something new that we haven't seen before. It is a new balance charger from Valkera. And you'll see it just literally has the transformer built in. You plug in on the end here. And in this back, we find the cable. Excuse me. So that comes with two parts. We have the regular power cord, and somewhere here is the connector. This is the standard power cord you have a lot of probably already in your household. And doing like this, it plugs right in here. So that's easy. On the other end is where the battery connects. And you'll see it has this port and you charge it by plugging in the balance tap. That is it. And it will start blinking red. Once you get a solid green, you have a charged battery. This one is significantly faster than the previous charger we were used to from Valkera. In addition to that, they include a nifty little tab here that allows you to charge a 3S battery. So you just literally just plug it in here, and then you connect the 3S battery right here to the little adapter. That's it. And you're charging a 3S battery. So that's a nifty little one-piece design charger from Valkera. Because of the 3S adapter, I'm guessing we're gonna be starting to see this box in other kits as well. Let's grab some propellers and put the box away. We should be needing 4 propellers. The kit comes with an extra set of propellers, which is very nice. Put this thing away. All right, so let's crack these open and take a look at them. And they're like that. Here is the propellers. Nifty little ones. They are 167 millimeters. That's about 6.5 inches. and look quite aggressive. I would say they're probably 6.5 by 4 or something like that. It doesn't say on them, so we're guessing. Anyway, we'll open the other pack while we're at it. Throw that, and here is the quad. Remember, most quads scoops in front and scoops this way in rear. So we're gonna take a look at the propeller, and since these are self-locking, we should be able to twist them on just like that. That's one, and this one goes on the other side. There, and one more. You can't put these on the wrong way. They're threaded specifically for the motor they fit on. And if you try to put them on the wrong motor, they won't go on. So that's a really convenient feature. There we go. We've got propellers on here. You can see they're using the big as they can get, any bigger and they wouldn't fit. Now looking up in front here, there, just like that, we find a 800 TV line camera. You can adjust the angle up and down like this, but it might not actually be necessary. You may want to just leave it pretty much level. The reason is, as I showed you before, these motors will tilt back and forth. And here's what that does. When you start increasing speed, the motors are going to tilt forward. So instead of the helicopter standing like this in the air, it's going to be level, but the motors will tilt forward. That's a big difference, because we used to print a block like this. You can see it better on the detail camera. That was put our camera at an angle so that when we flew, the camera would be level. Because now the propellers are tilting forward, we don't actually have to jib up the camera to get it level. And I'm guessing we can fly the entire flight and we'll just literally leave the camera at level, or maybe even looking down a little bit so we can see more of the ground when we come into land. I always like to see ground, but as you can imagine, when the aircraft is like this during flight, the camera has to look this way. So now when you slow down, you're looking up in the sky. And that's what's so cool about this thing balancing the body. And so that's the motors right here. The camera, I'm gonna leave it level, straightforward for now. And back here, you're gonna see we have 2 antennas. But before we pull these up, let's grab the video antenna. The video antenna goes right down here. And we're just gonna twist it down a little bit like that. It's a 5.8 gigahertz video transmitter. And one question I get a lot is, will this work with my Fat Shark goggles? And it's a yes and no answer. Here's the odd thing. My Fat Shark goggles are off by about 5 cycles on the frequency. But in reality, I get a perfect picture, so I am constantly using my Fat Shark goggles with Valkera aircrafts. And that's just a total standard Fat Shark goggle. I have a 3-turn helical on the front that gives me more reach for video, so if I turn my head towards the aircraft sound, it's kind of like an analog head tracker or antenna tracker. By turning my head and turning this antenna towards the aircraft, I get more reach. It's a very simple solution, but it's quite effective. Let's get a battery in this thing. This is the control link antennas here, so these needs to be up when we fly. So underneath here is the open button. Let's pop this open. And when you look down here, the first thing you notice is where you connect the battery. But also down here you see the plug for a GPS, for the OSD, and for the camera plug-in. So all the connections are here, you can actually get to them. To put the battery in, we're gonna kind of loosen up on the strap here. I'm grabbing the battery and I'm just gonna slide it underneath the strap a little bit like that. Now make sure you get the balance tab kind of put away and get the cable to come out cleanly. Then you grab the safety strap and finally you close the lid. Now before I turn it on, let me hurry up and say, next to the antenna here is actually where we have you can adjust the frequency for the video transmitter right here. And let me show you a real quick video where I unscrewed this, and you have 20 some screws holding the top plane down, but I unscrewed it, and as you can see here up front, we have the camera, and as you're moving down a little bit, you see the OSD. That is the on-screen display that shows this kind of information on the screen. Moving further down, you can see the 320 controller. That is a CC3D flight controller, which is wonderful because it's used by a lot of people, so a lot of people can give you input to refining the tuning of this aircraft. So that's a brilliant choice. Moving further down, you're gonna see the receiver for the control link, and that goes to the two antennas. That is a diversity antenna. You'll also notice the buzzer. That is actually a low voltage buzzer that Valkyria have included, so when the battery gets to 14.2 volts, the buzzer will start beeping so you know it's time to land. Really quickly before I proceed, for safety, I'm going to remove the propellers. I removed the propellers because the next thing I'm going to do is connect the battery down here. And when I do that, I don't want inside here the propellers to spin up if I make a mistake when I demonstrate how to arm and disarm the aircraft. When you work with Valkyria products, typically the way to arm them on an automatic binding situation is that you plug in the unit first, and then immediately afterward you turn on the radio. So let's do that. We're gonna plug this in and put it down, and I'm gonna grab the radio, and the next thing I'm gonna do is all the switches up, throttle stick down, and power on the radio. I can hear the roll motor on the copter is talking a bit, so something is definitely happening. One of the cool things with this radio is it has a bendable antenna. You should adjust that so it's standing straight up when you're flying. So if I'm flying like this antenna should bend up like that. You don't want to put it down like this. Let's look at the radio here. There is a couple of things that's worth noticing this time around. From the Runner 250, Valkyria got a lot of feedback that has resulted in a couple of extra ways they do things. For starters, to turn on the aircraft, you want to have the F-MOD switch pushed back and down like this. That is because when you flip it up, you can probably see the screen here. When you flip it up, they are adding 5% to the throttle stick. And what that does is that when you flip it up, it prevents you from shutting down the motors in flight and have them shut down and drop out. So once you have started the quad, flip this switch up, and now you can't accidentally shut off the motors in flight. So there, to start it, we need to be there. So to see how this works, let's arm the unit and see the practical application of this switch. To arm the unit, we're going to push the stick down and to the left, and now you see the lights blinking. And if I move it up, when I move it up, the motors start. When I push it back down, the motor stops. So now we're going to switch up the motor thing. And as you can see, with the motor lock pushed up, the motor stays on even when the throttle is all the way in the bottom. Now here's the catch. Since it basically adds 5% to the throttle gain, what you need to do when you land is you have to push this switch back down before you can disarm it. And to disarm it, let's do this real quickly again. If you look at the back of the quad. So basically, we take the stick down and to the left, you'll see the blinks and it turns on. Then we push up the motor lock. After we land, we push the motor lock back down, and then we take the throttle stick down and to the right, and that turns off the motors. It is now disarmed and is safe to handle again. The next key we're going to look at is the mix key. Let's take a look at that right here. In the pushed up position is in stabilized mode. If you push it down, you get a more aggressive flight, and if you push it all the way down, you have 100% rate mode. Now here's the thing to remember. In the up position, which is stabilized, you cannot actually roll the aircraft. You have to go down to Acro 1 or Acro 2 mode in order to roll and flip the aircraft. So that's when you are starting out learning. By all means, keep this thing in the up position. When you fly, all the other switches should be up. You're gonna find yourself in the air with the F mod is towards you. Beginners have the mix key up, and advanced users, of course, put the mix key down. Moving right along, what we really want to take a look at is, of course, the tilting motors here. I don't know if you guys can see a good look. This is my pitch stick. Here's roll, and here is pitch. What Valkyra has done is really surprisingly simple and effective. They have literally tied the roll or the movement of the motors directly to your pitch stick. So if you pull backwards, the motors roll backwards. If you pull forward, the motors roll forward. Interestingly enough, they chose to put that on AUX4. So you have the AUX4 dial right down here on the radio. And if you're using an Devo 7 radio, it's gonna be on the AUX2 dial. And using the AUX dial basically allows you to fine-tune the position of the motors before you start, because you don't want to start with the motors in forward position. It's going to get off the ground and move forward immediately. So you want to real quickly take a look at it, balance the motors, so make sure they're level. Once you have balanced the motors, now the thing picks up from the ground really easily. It flies nice and smoothly, and all you have to do is literally stick forward and you are moving forward. But the beautiful thing is, the body stays level, so when you start moving forward, you don't lose sight of your horizon, and when you brake, you don't see just sky. That makes it very easy to fly. When you come into land, you can still see your ground even when you're slowing down aggressively. On the downside, of course, you can't actually, by the feeling of what you see, get a feeling how much it brakes or accelerates. So you have to kind of know where the stick is on the radio. Let's take a look at the video output. And I have the View XL screen right here. And as you can see, we're getting video. And well, we're getting mostly black video. Let me turn this around and remove the lens cover. And there you go. Now you can kind of see we have the camera right here. There's no noticeable lag on this camera, which is actually a really interesting thing. Some of the companies out there are shipping multirotors with somewhat inferior CMOS cameras. Valkyra has chosen to use the 800 line camera, and it's actually a quite good flight camera. The same video shows up easily when I plug in my Fat Sharks. And if you can see that, we have again video, and you can see the OSD. Now if you take a real quick look at the OSD, you will see in the upper right hand corner is the flight timer. Down in the bottom left corner is the other important thing, that is the main battery. And as I was mentioning, the alarm, the LiPo buzzer starts beeping at 14.2. So by keeping an eye on that voltage down there, you will know how much flight time you have left or when it's starting to get low. Valkyra also includes the artificial horizon, which is cool. And they have the pitch and the roll percentage, which really doesn't do a whole lot for me. I would be fine with just the flight timer and the voltage and just the horizon. That would be my personal preference. And maybe in the future they will give us an option to select the components that's displayed on the OSD. But I gotta say, I'm actually quite happy with the OSD. I'm happy with the information it gives me, and it gives me a good, clear signal that I have had no problems flying about 500 meters out with that. Now that said, it is still kind of a mini quad, and it's really not meant to go much more than 200-300 meters. Once you go past that, you really need to do a lot of consideration where you're gonna land, how much battery do you have, etc. Taking a real quick look at some of the other features, check out the front here. We have a couple of quite powerful LED lights that helps your observer or yourself see what direction the aircraft is facing. Turning around, you can see on the back we're not armed right now. If I push the stick down and to the left, we are now armed. And here's the cool feature. When you roll left on the stick, you see the blinker to the left. When you roll right, you get the right blinker. I don't really think this guy behind you can see that when you're flying in their Fat Shark goggles. However, they also put the brake light in, so when you pull the stick, the pitch backwards, you get both of the lights on. I would like to see those lights out here on the booms so we get some big bright lights that really show up in the goggles. But there you have it. That is pretty much the aircraft. We have the video channel selector up here. We can plug in components down in the bay. And by the way, I should hurry up and tell you, right here on the arm, I'll show you right here. You can basically release the screw and the screw down below, and that allows you to pull out the arm for easily replacement of the arm. My biggest concern is if you manage to make a really good crash, you may break this part here. But I like how easy they made it to replace the arm. All right, taking a quick look at the side of this thing here, you will see that you have the 1700 kV motors right up here. And here is the power distribution, and under the two side panels right here, you find the ESCs. Now, one of the things that people complained about with the Runner 250 was that the power distribution board was part of the structural members. On the new Furious 320, which was originally actually labeled the Runner 320, Valkyr had gone a totally different direction. Basically, see this big board of carbon fiber on this side and a board of carbon fiber on this side. Those two boards are now the structural members and gives it an enormous amount of strength, along with the CF on top and the CF boards slotted in here in the bottom. The power distribution board then sits inside of that and is much more protected when you have an impact. I was gonna go get some flight video of this for you guys. I have the flight camera, not the recording one, so I wanted to mount a Mobius camera on here, and that wasn't that easy. So I printed a little H, kind of like that. You can see that, you can easily make that yourself. And it basically goes on top right here. Let me just click it on, like that. And the Mobius camera slides right into it right there. So that is how I'm mounting a camera. I really think Valkyr should make something like that, but in the meantime, I'm sure lots of you guys will easily make your own mounts. I'm also using, of course, my Mobius lens protector on the front, and I have a link on my blog to the lens protector, and I'll probably put a link up for the camera mount as well. That is how I mounted the camera for the video you will see of it flying. Now, we talked about how the camera needs to be level so it's easy for the pilot to see. But there is a whole different reason. Now, if you take something like the Runner, when we fly it really fast, it's flying in the air like this. So you can see how it becomes a lot of drag because it's a very bad aerodynamics. With the tilting motors, what we get is that instead of doing like this in the air, the aircraft stays level. And Valkyr has done a good job of actually kind of cleaning up the body. That helps this aircraft be really aerodynamic and quite fast. And Valkyr actually advertised it as being 110 kilometers or about little short of 80 miles an hour aircraft. Listen, I would be happy if it goes 50, that's still fast. So this is built as a Razor, a 320 size Razor. And first of all, there's not actually a 320 class, so to speak. It's kind of like an open class for Razors. And some of my friends like Babu that actually races hardcore. What they're racing is multirotors made out of one piece of carbon fiber, 4 motors, the smallest possible battery, so they can just make it through the race and be totally out of power when the race is done. That way they get all the advantages, and it's like a 3mm piece of carbon fiber. It's almost indestructible. Those units are weighing around 300 to 500 grams when they raise. The Furious 320 weighs about 1100 grams with propellers and battery when you're ready to fly. That means it's going to be hard to do really tight turns. So I think I would define this as a street legal hot rod. It's not a track racer, but it's something that your friends are going to love looking at. You're going to have a ton of fun flying it. It's blistering fast. It's easy to fly. It's having some new features. And look at this body here. The body is just absolutely begging for some flame jobs and some detail jobs on the side of this body. This is really a cool looking new aircraft. I have already finished a blog posting about this. You can find that at fpvguy.com. And I'm also going to be posting some flight videos and some more videos about how this flies. So stay tuned and subscribe. You can click right here in the corner to subscribe now for more FPV and aerial video related videos. So thank you for watching, and I'll see you again soon on the next FPV Guy video.